I'm here at the Filmfest Hamburg, and my guest today is writer and director Daniel Goldhaber, and we're here to talk about your new film, How to Blow Up a Pipeline. Can you tell us shortly in your own words what the film is about?
Yeah, the movie is an adaptation of a manifesto by a Swedish academic named Andreas Malm, and the book is kind of looking at a history of social movements and kind of looking at the fact that almost every social movement in history has, at the very least, been predicated on the destruction of property. And then climate change poses an existential threat to human life on Earth. And so, he is exploring whether or not there is a moral justification for the destruction of fossil fuel infrastructure to combat climate change. The movie is an adaptation of these ideas, and it's a heist film about 8 people in their early 20s who come together to blow up an oil pipeline to try to stem the, use of fossil fuels. And so it's kind of a very pop and entertaining way of exploring these questions of how do we protect the future of our planet.
And how and why did you choose the book as the basis of the film?
I mean, my parents work in climate science. I've kind of been working in climate, issues my whole professional life, and for most of my life it's something I've been very aware of and something I've wanted to tell stories about. I think the moment of inspiration reading the book was the fact that Andreas kind of identifies a target. I think that was something that from both a theoretical point of view but also from a narrative point of view was very interesting. I think that this is something that culturally we've actually really struggled with when we're thinking about how to deal with, moving on from fossil fuels. We think it's a matter of individual action or better consumption habits, or it's a matter of, trying to appeal to the people that run, oil companies. And I think what Andreas kind of outlines in the book is forget about all of that. Focus on what is the thing doing the harm. It's the infrastructure. And so maybe there's a moral obligation, a moral impetus to destroy the infrastructure. And then I think that this proposes a very exciting way into a narrative movie. We kind of wanted to do something that was Ocean's 11 for climate change, but instead of Andy Garcia as the evil casino owner, you have this pipeline. And I think even just conceptualizing the infrastructure as the antagonist, as the bad guy in a film, is something that provided a lot of exciting opportunity and inspiration.
Your first film, Cam, was a horror movie.
Yeah.
How was the transition from this genre to this one?
It's funny. For me, there was no difference, in part because we didn't make Cam with the intention that it would be even received as a horror movie. We just were telling that story the best way that we knew how. And for me, it's, the process is always, what's the idea? What's the best kind of genre container to communicate that idea? And then wanting to make a movie that is exciting and fun and that appeals to a wide audience. And so, the process was remarkably similar for both movies, and much of the same team worked on both movies. And I don't think that for any of us there was ever kind of like a moment of, oh, how do we do this different thing? It was fairly, that's just kind of how it goes.
Mm-hmm. Ariela Barrea
Yeah.
Not only plays the character of Sochi,
Yeah.
She also co-wrote the screenplay with
Yes.
you. And since the book by Andreas Malm that you mentioned is more like a manifesto and doesn't have a story, how was the process of turning that into a story?
Yeah. So I wrote the script with Ariela and then also with another writer named Jordan Scholl, and then Ariela stars in the movie and also produced the movie with me. So she was very much, we spent the last year and a half working on this together every day. But, the process of development was that Jordan found the book. He's an academic, getting his PhD at Duke right now, and he recommended the book to me for another project. And this is something that he has kind of always been interested in doing, adapting theory into a film. And it was something that he would kind of joke about wanting to do. I don't think we ever really thought it would be the first thing that we would actually make into a movie together. And Ariela very much found kind of the way into the movie. I think had this idea of kind of it being this collective story, the story of young people. I think she brought a lot of the stories to the film, but she also brought quite literally in collaborators that she found and that she brought into the collaborative process. But also, I think that she provided a lot of the conflict of the film, like conflicts in the film, but also just in the collaborative process. A lot of the process was really about, okay, there are these ideas in this book, but we want to push back on them. We want to challenge them. We want to dramatize them, and dramatizing them means finding conflict inside of the story. And I think that Ariella was always somebody who was really pushing the process to be like, why are we telling this story? What does it mean that we're telling this story? What are the ethics of telling this story? And I think, that was a lot of the process was just, again, very early on, we were like, we're going to make Ocean's 11 for climate change, for eco-terrorism. And then I think that the process of actually turning that into a story was figuring out how do you actually blow up a pipeline, and then also figuring out who are these people. And then again, that process of who are these people was something that was informed both by research that we did, reading a lot of books about people who've been directly affected by climate change, but then also finding people in our lives. And then from there, it came about pretty naturally. Yeah.
You've assembled a marvelous cast, and you're exploring everyone's backstory to show us why they're doing what they're doing. How did you find all of them?
Yeah, that was the casting process was something that I worked on very closely with the whole team, and it was something else that Ariella very much kind of was spearheading, because she was the actor on the team, so she had very good ideas about that. There were a number of ways. I had another movie I was making that was a big studio film that had been announced publicly, and I kind of used that film as a way to get meetings with actors that I wouldn't have been able to get meetings with otherwise. So there would be actors that would be interested in for the movie, and then I would kind of sneak in to getting the agents to set up the meetings using my movie that has, had already been announced. And so we had ideas early on. Sasha Lane was somebody that I think we had in mind. Forrest Goodluck was somebody that we had in mind from even the time of writing the film. And there are other actors like Lucas Gage, Jamie Lawson. I met that way. And then the other actors, it was just, a process of digging through people who we were excited about and wanting to find people who I think we felt were talented and really connected with the subject matter, but also who maybe hadn't had the opportunity to shine in the way that we hopefully could work with them on this film.
The film has been shown at the Toronto International Film Festival,
yeah,
and now here at the Filmfest Hamburg. And since I've been to the first screening here in Hamburg, I can say that it was very well received. What was your impression of that night?
Here in Hamburg?
Yeah.
Very good. I mean, Hamburg was a place that I was very excited when they reached out about the film because, Germany, but especially Hamburg and Berlin, are very much the centers of the climate justice movement in Europe right now. I think there's more activity and more. They've really. There's been things that have really been accomplished in Germany because there's a legacy, starting with the anti-nuclear movement here. And so it was a place that I was very excited to show the movie because I knew that people who work in this field would come to see it. And I think for me, being able to engage with I think that community here through showing the film here has been very rewarding.
At the Q&A after the screening, you said that you're a filmmaker, not an activist. But isn't this film some kind of activism too?
No.
Don't you think so?
I don't. I think that, there are absolutely activist movies out there, but I think that generally speaking, those are films that deal with issues of speech, movies that cannot be made legally in their country. I think that we live in a very hyper media saturated world right now, and so I think that sometimes one can confuse the making of a piece of media or the consumption of a piece of media with having actually done a thing. But that's not true. I'm an artist, I'm a storyteller. I think that for these issues, the creation of culture that is provocative and that is ethically made and ethically kind of conceptualized, and that has a strong message and that can communicate on a grand scale, I think this is important. I think that, you know, creating culture creates the circumstances where change can happen, but that change only happens when people are out there and actually doing real work. And I think that there are maybe going to be opportunities for me to do some forms of activism around the film when we get closer to release about the movie. But having made the film, I've just told a story. I've created a commodity that will be bought and sold on the international marketplace. That's a job, and it's one I'm very lucky to do, but it's not activism.
I think this film needs to be seen. So how about distribution? Have you been able to sell the film in any territory?
Yeah, I mean, we've sold in the States to Neon, which is the same company that put out Parasite, and they were our ideal distribution partners. So we're very, very excited about that collaboration, and we've just recently partnered with an international sales agency, so we're just starting the international sales process now. That's the meeting I have to go to at 3.
Okay. I hope that it will find a distributor here in Germany.
Yeah, I think so. I'm fairly confident.
Yeah, me too. What do you hope that people will walk away with after the screening?
I think walking away questioning the tactics in the film and thinking about the tactics and the stories, the why have all of these characters done this, and kind of thinking about the fact that if they emotionally relate, emotionally respond, emotionally understand why the characters have done what they've done, what that means for what must be done to fight climate change, which is not to say the movie is endorsing the action, but rather trying to get people to understand the action. And I think if they can understand the action, then that will create interesting dialogue and interesting cultural movement.
How hard or how easy was it to get this film financed in the first place?
I mean, it's never easy to make a movie. I was very lucky that I think that from the beginning we had a sense that this is a movie that would not appeal to 99% of financiers, but the financiers that it did appeal to, it would appeal to very strongly. And this was true. So, you know, I think that Lyrical and Spacemaker, Alex Hughes and Alex Black, our 2 financiers, both were very passionate about this film and were also really great collaborators. And I think that one thing that I've found in my career is that I think that filmmakers, making a film is a capital-intensive process. It just takes money. But I think filmmakers are kind of instructed to think of the money as like some sort of necessary evil that should be treated with suspicion and that wants to take the movie away from them. But for me, I really think that, like, well, I need a cinematographer, I need actors, I need money, I need financiers. I should be collaborating with all of these people equally. And so I've only had very positive collaborations with financiers on my projects, and in this case, I think both my financiers made the movie substantially better with, I think, the impact that they had on the movie from start to finish. So it was less about, you know, it's never easy to find anybody, but I think one of them, financiers, I had a pre-existing relationship with. The other I luckily met at the Cannes Film Festival, and I'm just lucky to have been able to work with people who were so collaborative on this project.
As I said, the film completely blew me away that night, and I think it's perfect the way it is. But would you have done anything different if you had, let's say, unlimited money or unlimited time?
I think that it's a kind of an impossible question because I think that every movie is kind of a documentary of its own making. And so in making this film, we were very aware that we made the film extraordinarily quickly. It was 19 months from start to finish. We had 3 months after we finished the script, to prep the movie, finance the movie, cast the movie, which is an extremely short period of time, especially considering that, you know, we had just finished the screenplay. So I think that when we were doing this, we were kind of questioning, is this the right way to make the film? Should we take more time, it'll be better, we'll be able to build a better production, all of these things. But I think that we really felt that the movie is about a very impulsive act, and that the movie should be made equally as impulsively. We wanted to get the film out as quickly as we could. And so I think that we knew that there were going to be sacrifices, compromises that had to be made to achieve that speed, but also there's something about that speed and that impulsivity and that kind of flying by the seat of your pants nature that I think is energetically very much in the film. And so you can't maybe have this energy without also having those sacrifices and compromises, and ultimately there's something about that energy that I think is what people respond to. So in that sense, I think as a filmmaker, you have to trust the process. And I think that well, there's certainly, I should have done another take of that. Oh, I shouldn't have done the camera move that way. Oh, I should have repositioned this, to that. These are kind of irrelevant problems. Yeah.
Let's have a look at the future.
Yeah.
Are there any new projects you can already talk about?
Not a ton that is, I have a movie that I'm working on. It's set in the world of techno in clubs. That is also about revolution. That is the film that Pipeline grew out of. That's a much bigger film that I've been working on. I also have a project about extreme bodybuilding that I've been working on for many years. But it just depends what actually happens next. And then I'm doing a video game with my collaborator Issa Matsei, who produced this and wrote my first film with me. And that's something that we're currently in the prototype stages on.
That sounds very interesting.
Yeah.
I wish you all the best with this film.
Thank you.
Good luck with the second screening tonight.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Great.